Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're plunging into a question that feels, well, increasingly urgent, doesn't it? It's profoundly complex and honestly pretty much impossible to ignore.
Which is?
Is our relentless, unwavering pursuit of economic growth actually destroying our planet?
Yeah.
And maybe even something deeper within us, our very souls.
That's a huge question.
It is. It's a bold one. And to really wrestle with it, we're centering our exploration today around anthropologist Jason Hickel's really powerful book, Less is More: How Degrowth Will Save the World.
A very provocative title.
Absolutely. And it's not just some dry academic text, the radical call, really, for all of us to fundamentally reevaluate what we truly consider a good life.
Right. What actually matters.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive is to explore this degrowth movement.
Right.
But not just as like an economic theory you'd read about in a textbook.
More than just charts and graphs.
Yeah, way more. We want to look at it as a truly profound spiritual philosophy. It invites us, you see, to shift away from this endless, often just exhausting cycle of consumerism and accumulation.
The hamster wheel.
Totally.
Right.
It's about envisioning and hopefully building a world based on sufficiency, on deep ecological balance and on genuine human well-being.
It's a very different vision.
It is, and it's this fascinating paradox, isn't it? The idea that growth, which we're just so conditioned to see as always positive, can, in its current form, lead directly to breakdown. And that conversely, less, far from being some kind of sacrifice or deprivation, can actually be more.
More fulfilling.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Not just more for the planet's health, but profoundly more in terms of our individual and, I guess, our collective spiritual richness.
What's truly illuminating here, though, is that this whole idea of questioning relentless accumulation, questioning infinite growth, it's not new at all.
Right. You mentioned that.
Yeah, I mean, humanity has been grappling with this core dilemma for millennia. It pops up everywhere. It's kind of a universal human quest, really.
But Hickel's giving it a modern economic frame, but the questions are ancient.
Precisely. So while Hickel provides that contemporary economic lens, we're going to broaden our perspective quite dramatically today. We'll be examining this really rich tapestry of sources. We're talking ancient spiritual texts like the Bhagavad Gita, the Yoga Sutras, profound philosophical works, figures like Plotinus, Christian mysticism, Taoist wisdom, modern psychology to Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer.
Wow, quite a range.
And even practical guides for daily living. The point isn't just to, cherry pick quotes. It's about showing that these underlying principles of degrowth, they resonate across cultures and time.
Finding the common threads.
Exactly. We'll be looking for those common threads across all these seemingly disparate materials to really understand the deep spiritual dimensions of degrowth and, well, what it means for us, both as individuals and as a global society, right here, right now.
Okay, so diving into Hickel's argument in Less is More. Right from the start, he really cuts to the chase, doesn't he? He challenges one of our most ingrained assumptions, that economic growth, measured by GDP, is the ultimate sign of progress.
The holy grail, basically.
Yeah. He states it pretty plainly. We have been trained to see exponentially rising GDP as a proxy for human progress. But it's not quite so simple. We need to retrain our eyes.
And that's crucial because everything seems built around that number.
It really does. Our entire modern world, GDP goes up, everyone cheers, it dips, panic sets in. We just instinctively connect it with things getting better for everyone.
It's the default narrative.
Totally. And Hickel offers this incredible analogy to help us retrain those eyes.
Yeah.
He says, it's like looking at one of those pictures that seems like an ordinary two-dimensional pattern, but when you change your focus and look more deeply, then suddenly a new three-dimensional image comes into view.
Ah, like those magic eye pictures. I remember those.
Exactly, from the 90s, right?
Yeah.
At first, it's just this swirl of colors, just noise. But when you kind of relax your gaze, shift your perception, boom, a hidden image, a ship or a dinosaur, whatever, pops out.
Right, you see beyond the surface pattern.
And our obsession with GDP, Hickel suggests, is like staring too hard at that two-dimensional pattern. We see the production, the consumption, the financial transactions, all that surface-level economic stuff.
Stuff that's easily measured.
Right. But the deeper three-dimensional reality, the one we're missing, that reveals the profound environmental costs, the social costs, all hidden just beneath the surface.
It's a really powerful way to put it.
It is. And he points out this bitter irony, noting that we've been persuaded to use the word growth to describe what has now become primarily a process of breakdown.
Oof, that hits hard.
doesn't it? We're essentially celebrating destruction, but we've disguised it as progress. It's like measuring the health of a forest purely by the speed at which its trees are being cut down and sold.
Instead of its biodiversity or its ability to actually sustain life. Yeah.
Exactly. It's completely backwards when you look at it that way.
That's a perfect analogy. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Hickel's insight on growth is particularly, well, illuminating because he forces us to confront this inherent contradiction, this idea that growth equals breakdown. He pushes for a more holistic way of thinking, recognizing that economic growth isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It is, and this is his phrase, broadly equivalent to the rate at which our economy is metabolizing the living world.
Metabolizing the living world. Wow, that's visceral.
It really is. It makes you stop and think. Under capitalism, he argues, the rate of growth is the rate at which nature is being commodified and roped into circuits of accumulation.
So turning everything into a commodity for profit.
Basically, yes. This perspective really reveals how much we've come to view the entire world through this lens of capital, of extraction, rather than through the lens of life itself or, the intrinsic value of ecosystems.
It reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, the distinction between cleverness and intelligence.
Yes, Eckhart Tolle in A New Earth. That's a really relevant connection here. Tolle describes cleverness as that focused, often brilliant pursuit of its own little aims.
Like maximizing quarterly profits or inventing the next gadget.
Exactly. Or finding super efficient ways to extract resources. It's incredibly effective at achieving specific, often short-term goals. No doubt about that.
Good.
But Tolle contrasts this with intelligence, which, he says, sees the larger whole in which all things are connected.
The bigger picture.
Right. So the relentless pursuit of economic growth, while it's undeniably clever in generating profits for some, at least in the short term,
Yeah, often proves to be.
profoundly short-sighted, ultimately even self-defeating, because it systematically ignores the larger ecological systems, the human communities that it absolutely depends on.
So, cleverness without wisdom.
You could say that. It's a tragic example, really, of applying cleverness without that encompassing wisdom of intelligence. We get really good at solving immediate problems, but often end up creating larger systemic ones down the line.
That makes sense.
And this kind of narrow, self-serving cleverness, it resonates deeply with critiques you find in texts like Conversations with God, which frankly doesn't pull any punches.
What does it say?
It's pretty direct. It says, you plunder the earth, rape her of her resources, exploit her people, and systematically disenfranchise those who disagree with you for doing all of this, calling them the radicals.
Wow. Strong words.
Very. And it goes on. You do all this for your own selfish purposes because you've developed a lifestyle that you cannot maintain any other way.
So it's pointing to the self-interest driving it all.
Deeply ingrained self-interest. This isn't just an economic point or a political jab. It feels like a stark moral and spiritual indictment. It suggests our current paradigm prioritizes maintaining a particular, very resource-intensive lifestyle, whatever the cost.
Rather than questioning if that lifestyle is even sustainable or just.
Exactly. It implies a kind of moral bankruptcy in our collective cleverness.
That's a powerful indictment, as you said. And it brings us to another really critical point Hickel makes. He challenges another deeply held belief, almost sacred in our society.
Which is
that economic growth automatically improves human lives. The idea that more growth means better schools, better healthcare, less poverty, all that.
The rising tide lifts all boats narrative.
Precisely. But Hickel says the historical record is clear that economic growth itself has no direct, necessary positive implications for population health.
That feels almost heretical, doesn't it? To say more money in the economy doesn't automatically mean a better life for everyone.
It really does feel counterintuitive. But what Hickel points out is that any improvements we do see, say in health or education, they aren't an automatic result of GDP going up.
So where do they come from?
They depend entirely on, quote, political forces that determine how income is distributed.
So it's about distribution, not just the size of the pie.
Exactly. If wealth isn't shared fairly, if social services aren't prioritized, then growth it makes the rich richer and can leave everyone else behind, or sometimes even worse off.
We see that with rising inequality, for sure.
Right. He actually shows that quite often, quote, growth has worked against social progress, not for it. You see it in eroding public services, privatization of essential things.
So the rising tide might only be lifting the yachts?
That's a good way to put it. That promise often turns out to be a myth, or at least very selective. And this profound disconnect, between material gain and actual human well-being. As we're going to see, this has really ancient, deep roots. It goes way beyond modern economics.
It's a perennial human challenge, really. How to live well. So, okay, if economic growth doesn't automatically deliver well-being and maybe even brings breakdown, then what's driving this seemingly bottomless desire for more?
Yeah, where does that come from?
Well, at the heart of it, many spiritual traditions point to something they often call the ego.
The ego.
Eckhart Tolle, again, in A New Earth, offers a really profound insight here. He talks about this crucial shift in consciousness where he says, your identity has shifted from ego to awareness. This means the ego is shrinking and awareness is growing.
So moving from ego identification to awareness.
Exactly. And the ego, in this sense, is that part of us driven by self-interest, by a sense of being separate, and by this constant craving for external validation.
Like needing possessions, status, power.
Right, or even just feeling right all the time. And it's like a bottomless pit because it fundamentally believes that getting more on the outside will somehow complete it, make it feel whole or secure.
But it never really dies.
It can't. It's a treadmill of desire that never truly satisfies because the lack is felt internally.
That makes sense.
And this constant seeking, this craving, it also shows up as what Michael Singer in The Untethered Soul calls clinging. Yeah. He notes that whether we're trying to push away energies that bother us or trying desperately to hold on to energies we like. In both cases, he says, you are not letting them pass, and you are wasting precious energy by blocking the flow through resisting and clinging.
Give me an example.
Well, think about the anxiety you might feel about losing something you value, maybe a job or a relationship, or even just that subtle discomfort when a really pleasant feeling starts to fade and you wish it wouldn't.
Okay. Try to hold on or push away.
Exactly. This constant clinging, this need to acquire, to hold on to things, to control experiences. It actually blocks the natural flow of life. It keeps us trapped in that cycle of wanting.
Which, as Tolle said, the ego can never truly satisfy.
Precisely, because the void it's trying to fill is internal, not external. So the deep insight here is that our relentless craving for more isn't always about genuine need. It's often driven by this deeper, often unconscious psychological habit. The ego chasing external validation and us clinging to whatever we think will provide it.
Which creates this loop of dissatisfaction. Because external stuff can't fill an internal hole.
You got it.
That's a powerful point about the ego and clinging. But, I can imagine someone listening thinking, okay, but isn't some ambition good?
Yeah.
Isn't striving healthy? Where's the line between, natural human drive and this insatiable hunger of the ego?
That's a fair question, and I think the answer suggested by a lot of these texts is that this ego-driven desire doesn't just spring up in a vacuum.
It's influenced by.
It's massively amplified and shaped by societal conditioning, by the culture around us, which molds our very perception of reality, our definition of success.
How so?
Well, the Four Agreements puts it really beautifully. It says, the humans who live before us teach us how to dream the way society dreams. The outside dream uses mom and dad, the schools, and religion to teach us how to dream.
So we're programmed from birth, almost.
In a way, yeah. Programmed to chase a certain vision of the good life. A dream that very often equates happiness with accumulating things and achieving certain external milestones.
Okay, I see that. And Brene Brown adds another layer, right? With perfectionism.
Yes, exactly. In Daring Greatly, she talks about perfectionism, calling it addictive, because when we invariably do experience shame, judgment, and blame, we often believe it's because we weren't perfect enough.
So the pressure to be perfect, to have it all, fuels the growth thing.
Directly. We get caught in this belief that if we just acquire a little more, achieve a little more, present a more flawless image to the world, then we'll finally be enough, we'll be worthy.
And it's a relentless chase.
Totally. The Four Agreements elaborates on just how crushing this societal dream can be. It says, not being perfect, we reject ourselves. We cannot forgive ourselves for not being what we wish to be, or rather what we believe we should be. We cannot forgive ourselves for not being perfect.
Wow. That's deep self-rejection.
It is. And that deep-seated feeling of not being good enough then drives us to constantly seek external validation, material gain, status symbols. Mistakenly believing these things will fill that inner void.
So we wear these social masks, pretending to be something we're not.
Exactly. Because we're terrified, others will see our perceived flaws or imperfections. It becomes this vicious cycle where we're chasing an impossible ideal, both for ourselves and then projecting it onto others, who, of course, invariably fall short of our expectations.
Right. So this striving for an externally defined perfection and the fear of failing, that becomes a powerful engine for just consuming and acquiring more and more.
Perfectly put. And the tragic irony, the real picker, is that this relentless pursuit of external stuff, of validation, of material accumulation, it often leaves us feeling profoundly empty.
Even when we succeed by society's standards.
Especially then, sometimes. This emptiness is just so vividly illustrated in Hermann Hesse's classic novel, Siddhartha. After years spent as this successful merchant, pursuing wealth, fine clothes, sensual pleasures, all the trappings of a comfortable, successful life, Siddhartha is just overcome by this profound sadness.
Spiritual crisis.
Absolutely. He has this devastating realization that, quote, nothing which was alive, nothing which was in some way delicious or worth keeping he had left in his hands. Alone he stood there and empty like a castaway on the shore.
Wow. Having everything, yet feeling completely empty, like a castaway.
Imagine that feeling. Achieving what society tells you is success, surrounded by riches, yet feeling utterly worthless and pointless.
Sure.
His story is just such a powerful testament to the ultimate futility of chasing external acquisition when it's detached from inner meaning, from spiritual purpose.
It really makes you think.
And Siddhartha's experience perfectly mirrors the Bhagavad Gita's timeless warning against actions driven purely by profit calculation for sense gratification.
What does it get to say about that?
It states that a person who isn't in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of their labor, basically chasing rewards, that person becomes entangled and cannot have that peace.
A direct link. Chasing external gains leads to entanglement, loss of peace.
Exactly. The more we chase external things just for our own pleasure or ego boost, the more tangled we get in this web of desires, anxieties, attachments, and true peace just slips away.
Okay, so this raises an important question, then, doesn't it?
It certainly does.
How do we break free? How do we get off this hamster wheel of endless wanting and actually redefine what a truly rich, fulfilling life looks like? One that, nourishes our souls and respects the planet we live on. Right? That's the crucial pivot. If endless growth and piling up stuff isn't the answer, how do we redefine the good life?
What's the alternative vision?
Exactly. And the core idea, which you hear echoed across pretty much every spiritual tradition we've looked at, it points us away from outer accumulation, doesn't it? It points us towards inner wealth, valuing sufficiency, finding an enduring inner peace.
Peace that isn't dependent on external circumstances.
Right. Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now uses that beautiful metaphor, the deep lake one. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. Refresh my memory.
He says, you become like a deep lake. The outer situation of your life and whatever happens there is the surface of the lake. Maybe choppy, stormy.
Right, the ups and downs, the chaos.
Deep down, however, the lake is always undisturbed.
Yes, that stillness beneath the surface.
Exactly. Tolle explains that this kind of inner peace, does not depend on the outer world of constantly fluctuating forms. It's about cultivating this stability, this stillness inside ourselves that isn't just constantly swayed by external events, market crashes, job losses, new trends, whatever.
So you can still participate in the world, but you're not defined or controlled by it.
Precisely. It lets us enjoy the world without needing to possess it or control it or cling desperately to it. It's a peace that comes from an internal source, like a deep wellspring of presence, not from getting the next thing.
And this pursuit of inner peace, this freedom from entanglement, it's really important to understand it's not about grim ascetic deprivation, is it? Which is how it often gets caricatured.
Right. It's not about wearing a hair shirt and living in a cave necessarily.
Not at all. It's more about making intentional choices. Choices that align us with the deeper sense of purpose and move us towards genuine liberation, genuine freedom from that compulsive wanting.
Making conscious choices.
Yes. And William James, actually, in The Varieties of Religious Experience, he even throws out this provocative question. He wonders if the worship of material luxury and wealth, which constitutes so large a portion of the spirit of our age, might actually make somewhat for effeminacy and unmanliness.
Whoa. That's challenging the idea that consumerism makes you strong or successful.
Right. He's questioning the perceived strength of it all, suggesting, counterintuitively, that maybe it weakens our character, makes us dependent on external comforts rather than helping us cultivate inner resilience. It's a fascinating thought.
It really is.
And to truly cultivate that inner wealth, that inner strength, Theologia Germanica, which is this incredible text from Christian mysticism, offers a very direct, almost radical path.
What's the path?
It says, "Put off thine own will, and there will be no hell." Basically, let go of your small, self-centered desires. And it continues, "For a man highest good would be and truly is that he should not seek himself nor his own things, nor be his own end in any respect, but should seek only the praise and glory of God and his holy will."
So shifting from self-will to a higher will, or a greater purpose.
Exactly. This isn't about blind obedience in a dogmatic sense, but about abandoning the ego's narrow, often selfish agenda and aligning with something larger, a universal purpose.
How does that connect to degrowth?
Well, for a degrowth philosophy, that translates pretty directly into moving beyond purely individual desires for more consumption, more stuff, and aligning instead with the collective well-being of humanity and the planet. It's a shift from asking, "What can I get?" to asking what truly serves the greater good.
A fundamental shift in motivation.
Absolutely. And St. John of the Cross, in his masterpiece, Dark Night of the Soul, describes an even deeper process. He talks about the soul being purged from the affections and desires of sense, which then allows it to obtain liberty of spirit.
Liberty of spirit. What does that mean?
It means the soul can then journey in all purity in the love of God, since it is no longer influenced in its actions by the pleasure and sweetness of the actions themselves, but only by a desire to please God.
Okay, so it's not about denying pleasure,
Right.
but changing why you seek it.
Precisely. Instead of being driven by the fleeting sweetness of buying something new or some sensory indulgence, you find a deeper, more sustainable satisfaction in aligning your actions with a higher, pure intention, finding joy that isn't dependent on constant external stimulation.
Which seems pretty core to a society aiming for sufficiency over just endless excess.
Exactly. It's about finding that deeper wellspring of joy.
So, okay, bringing this back down to earth to our everyday lives. What does this all mean, practically, if you're redefining the good life away from just quantity?
Towards quality, towards inner richness.
Right. It means finding joy and simplicity in presence, recognizing the inherent richness in what is right now, rather than constantly chasing what isn't.
Appreciating the present moment.
Yeah. The Tao of Pu talks about this beautiful concept, the uncarved block. Remember that?
Yes, Pooh Bear himself embodying it.
Exactly. It's not about being stupid or unrefined. It's about being in your natural state, without all the complex artificial layers of excessive thinking or societal pressure. And from this state, the state of the uncarved block, comes the ability to enjoy the simple and the quiet, the natural and the plain.
Appreciating things just as they are.
Without needing to complicate them or acquire more around them. And you see this beautifully put into practice in everyday ways, like in Tamar Adler's book, An Everlasting Meal. It's all about cooking with economy and grace.
Using everything, finding value in scraps.
Totally. She champions things like using every last bit of vegetable scrap to make this incredibly flavorful broth, or taking charred vegetables that might seem ruined and turning them into delicious baba ganoush.
Creative sufficiency.
It's a masterclass in it.
Yeah.
Honoring resources, finding incredible richness and satisfaction in what's already right there. It just elevates the ordinary into something amazing through mindful engagement.
That connects really well to Thoreau, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. This pursuit of essentials totally echoes Thoreau's iconic vision in Walden. His ideal one-room house, which he imagined containing all the essentials of a house, and nothing for housekeeping.
Stripping away the non-essential.
Exactly. It's that classic vision of living with purpose, but without excess. Where, as he said, you can see all the treasures of the house at one view, instead of being overwhelmed by piles of stuff you don't even use.
Living deliberately.
Right. And ultimately, maybe the simplest way to put it comes back to Eckhart Tolle. When you accept what is, every piece of meat, every moment is the best. That is enlightenment.
Wow. Radical contentment.
It really is.
Yeah.
Finding richness not in more but in the now, that feels like a real foundation for a degrowth mindset.
Okay, so if we're shifting from theory to actual practice, cultivating this inner awareness, this self-mastery, seems absolutely foundational for spiritual degrowth, right?
Yeah, how do we actually do it? It's not just intellectual understanding.
No, it's about intentionally shifting our inner landscape. Sam Harris, in Waking Up, puts his finger on a key obstacle. He says, The principal enemy of mindfulness, or of any meditative practice, is our deeply conditioned habit of being distracted by thoughts.
The constant mental chatter.
Exactly. He clarifies, the problem is not thoughts themselves, but the state of thinking without knowing that we are thinking. We're often just lost in this endless stream of internal commentary, planning, regretting, judging, barely even aware it's happening.
Just swept away by it.
Right. And this incessant mental noise, it stops us from truly experiencing the present moment, and it keeps us locked in those desires and anxieties fueled by the ego.
So the first step is noticing the thinking.
Noticing the thinking without getting caught in it. Harris emphasizes the importance of, as Eckhart Tolle also describes it in A New Earth, creating gaps in the stream of thinking.
Gaps. Like moments of silence.
Oh, yes, but more than just silence. They're moments of conscious awareness where you kind of step back from the mental chatter and access what Tolle calls inner space, this deeper, more expansive sense of self, the underlying I am.
Beyond the noisy thoughts.
Exactly. These moments of just being aware, consciously present, they are critical for seeing beyond the ego's endless demands. They help us connect with a deeper sense of self that isn't defined by what it has or achieves externally.
So observing thoughts without being carried away. Creating space for choice.
Precisely. Space for choice rather than just reacting automatically based on old patterns.
And the Yoga Sutras talk about this kind of mastery too, right?
They do, very explicitly. This ancient text on yoga philosophy states that the non-interest in the operations of the mento-emotional energy is achieved by one who has perfect mastery in consciousness.
Non-interest in the operations of the mento-emotional energy. What does that mean in plain English?
It basically means achieving a state where you can observe your thoughts and emotions, that mento-emotional energy, without getting attached to them, without being controlled by them. It's not about suppressing them, but understanding their temporary nature.
Seeing them come and go without latching on.
Right. It's a deep internal freedom. It allows us to detach from that constant flux of desires, which, as we've discussed, are so often tied to material things and the ego's need for more.
And this leads to...
This mastery leads to the development of something called adavaraprajna.
Okay, say that again.
Ritamvaraprajna. It's usually translated as something like reality perceptive insight or truth-bearing wisdom.
Reality perceptive insight. I like that. How does it develop?
The sutras say it arises when our mento-emotional force is inclined towards discrimination, meaning discerning what's real and lasting from what's temporary and illusory, and gravitates towards the total separation from the mundane psychology.
Separation from mundane psychology. So seeing beyond our everyday patterns of thinking and wanting.
That's a great way to put it. This insight allows us to see through those ordinary, often superficial patterns of desire and mental chatter. It helps us grasp a deeper, more profound truth about ourselves and reality.
Like having an internal compass.
Exactly. An internal compass that points towards what's truly essential, what aligns with genuine well-being, rather than just being constantly swayed by fleeting wants or societal pressures. It's an intuitive wisdom that cuts through illusion.
Which would allow us to make choices serving our highest self, not just the ego's cravings.
Precisely. It's the foundation for truly intentional living.
Okay, so this inner work, cultivating self-mastery, gaining this reality perceptive insight. It's not just about personal enlightenment in a vacuum, is it?
Not at all. It translates directly into how we interact with the world, with each other, with the planet. It's the foundation for ethical living, for universal love qualities, absolutely crucial for any society trying to find a path beyond just relentless growth.
How so? Where do we see that connection?
Well, look at the Bhagavad Gita again. It gives this incredible list of what it calls divine qualities. Qualities that are foundational for a society truly focused on well-being, not just acquisition.
What kind of qualities?
Things like fearlessness, charity, controlling the mind, nonviolence, truthfulness, freedom from anger, renunciation, tranquility, mercy towards all living entities, freedom from greed, gentleness, modesty, determination, vigor, forgiveness, fortitude, cleanliness, freedom from envy, not expectation of honor.
Wow, that's quite a list. It's a blueprint for a different kind of person, a different kind of society.
Isn't it? These aren't just abstract ideals, they're practical virtues. When cultivated, individually and collectively, they fundamentally shift our priorities away from the self-centeredness that fuels endless growth.
Imagine a society where freedom from greed and mercy towards all living entities were actually guiding principles.
That is a degrowth society in action, spiritually speaking.
That connects to St. Catherine of Siena, too. You mentioned her concept of unitive love.
Yes. She spoke of this love as extending her desire for the salvation of the whole world. It's not just a vague feeling of goodwill, it's a profound spiritual state where your individual connection to the divine or to your deepest self expands to embrace all of humanity, all of creation.
Moving beyond self-interest to active compassion for everyone, everything.
Exactly, which is precisely the ethical framework a degrowth society needs. Similarly, the cloud of unknowing, that mystical text, talks about having a naked intent directed towards God, not for personal gain or meed, which means reward.
So doing good for its own sake, not for what you get back.
Right. Acting for the universal good without expecting a personal return. Sam Harris echoes this in Waking Up with what he calls self-transcending love, describing it as a deep sense of flourishing that arises from an exceptionally healthy mind.
These are the qualities that let us build a society where less is more really means something profound. Less self-interest, more compassion. Less greed, more generosity.
Beautifully put. And there's another crucial principle, especially from Taoism, that fits perfectly here. The idea of working with natural flow. Wei Wu Wei.
Do without doing. That sounds paradoxical.
It does, but the Tao of Pu explains it brilliantly. It's not about laziness or inaction. It's about working in harmony with natural processes, adapting to the flow of things, rather than trying to force outcomes through sheer effort or constant struggle.
Like swimming with the current instead of against it.
Exactly. Pu uses the analogy of hitting a cork in water. The harder you hit it, the more it yields. The more it yields, the harder it bounces back. Without expending energy, the cork can easily wear you out. So Wu Wei overcomes force by neutralizing its power, rather than by adding to the conflict.
Okay, so how does that apply to degrowth?
Well, this approach is absolutely vital for a degrowth paradigm. Degrowth inherently seeks to work with natural limits, with ecological flows, not constantly fight against them using the force of industrial extraction and endless consumption.
So adapting to the planet's capacity, flowing with it.
Instead of relentlessly pushing beyond it, trying to dominate it. That story from the book about the aspiring cloud, wind, and stone illustrates this perfectly.
Remind me.
The cloud wishes it was the wind wishes it was the stone, each wanting more power, only to realize they're all constrained by other natural forces. The cloud gets blown by the wind is blocked by the stone gets worn down by water.
So chasing absolute power is futile. Wisdom lies in accepting limits.
And accepting natural forces. True power, the Tao suggests, lies not in dominating, but in understanding and aligning with these inherent balances. It's about recognizing our place within the natural order, not trying to stand above it, letting nature guide our actions rather than just imposing our will.
That feels like a really profound spiritual lesson with direct implications for how we treat the earth.
Absolutely fundamental.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. We've talked about individual spiritual growth, inner work, working with flow. Now, how does this shift from personal practice translate into a collective vision? What does it mean for society as a whole?
Well, if we truly internalize the spiritual roots of our craving for more and the alternative paths we've discussed, then a new vision for society naturally starts to emerge. And it's one founded on this deep, undeniable sense of interconnectedness.
Everything being linked.
Everything. The ancient philosopher Plotinus in the Enneads put it so elegantly, we are them by being together with all things. We are therefore all in one.
All in one. That's a powerful statement.
It is. And this idea of fundamental unity, that we aren't just isolated individuals, but interwoven threads in a single vast tapestry, it's absolutely essential for developing an ecological worldview and for building a successful degrowth society. It fundamentally challenges the whole notion of isolated self-interest being the primary driver.
Right. If we're all connected, my well-being depends on yours and on the planet's.
Precisely. Hermanesse Siddhartha gives us that incredible, almost sensory image of this with Siddhartha's vision of the river. Remember that?
Yes, the voices in the river.
He hears its voice, sees all these images merging, his father, himself, his son, turn all into the river, head it all being the river, for the goal, longing, desiring, suffering. And then other voices joined it, voices of joy and of suffering, good and bad voices, laughing and sad ones, 100 voices, 1,000 voices.
It's such a beautiful image of everything flowing together.
It's not just a pretty metaphor for a landscape, it's a visceral understanding of how all individual lives, all experiences, joys, sorrows, they're all interwoven within this vast flowing web of life itself. The river symbolizes the unity of existence.
Every stream contributing to the whole.
Exactly, and you see this deep sense of interconnectedness reflected in figures like black elk. Even in times of conflict, his people understood the intricate balance burning grass to starve the soldiers' horses, showed an awareness of the ecosystem.
And his visions.
His visions were filled with the thunder-being nation, animal spirits, indicating this profound personal connection to the natural world, seeing themselves as part of it, not separate from it. That recognition is fundamental.
Okay, so if we truly grasp this interconnectedness,
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this profound sense of being all in one inherently leads to a heightened sense of responsibility, doesn't it?
because your actions affect everything else.
Exactly. When you realize you're interconnected with everything, your choices ripple outwards in ways you might not even imagine. Deepak Chopra, in the Seven Spiritual Laws of Success, makes this very practical. He advocates for conscious choice-making, urging us to ask ourselves two key questions before any significant decision.
What are they?
First, what are the consequences of this choice that I'm making? And second, will this choice bring fulfillment and happiness to me and also to those who are affected by this choice?
Thinking beyond just yourself.
Way beyond. These aren't just nice feel-good questions. They're tools for ethical action. It's about recognizing our evolutionary karma, as he calls it. Choices that are evolutionary, meaning they support growth and well-being for both ourselves and everyone affected. Those choices lead to happiness and success for the whole system.
Moving beyond narrow self-interest to universal well-being.
Exactly. Acknowledging that our individual flourishing is completely inseparable from the flourishing of the whole. Which is a stark contrast, really, to that feeling M. Scott Peck talks about in The Road Less Traveled.
Which feeling is that?
The unreality of feeling omnipotent when people first fall in love. That sense that all things seem possible, all problems will be overcome.
Ah, the honeymoon phase illusion.
Right. While it feels great initially, it's unsustainable because it ignores reality, ignores limits. And Peck suggests, and I think it's relevant here, that an unchecked growth mentality operates from a similar unsustainable illusion of limitless power, a disregard for consequences.
Like a societal honeymoon phase with infinite growth,
Sure.
believing we could just override natural laws and social impacts.
Kind of, yeah. It's like a juvenile stage of development, perhaps. And moving beyond that requires more than just empathy, although empathy is crucial. Steven Pinker, in The Better Angels of Our Nature, makes this point.
What does he emphasize?
He argues that the historical decline of violence, while maybe owing something to expanding empathy, also owes a lot to what he calls harder-boiled faculties.
Like what?
Like prudence, reason, fairness, self-control, norms and taboos and conceptions of human rights.
So empathy needs structure.
Exactly. These social virtues, reason, fairness, self-control, are absolutely essential for navigating a complex, interconnected world and for ensuring a just and equitable degrowth transition. Empathy gets you started, but it's the structured, reasoned application of fairness and self-control that actually builds a peaceful and sustainable society, not just relying on fleeting emotions.
That makes a lot of sense. So this new vision, emerging from interconnectedness and responsibility, it also involves reclaiming how we define ourselves,
Right.
both as individuals and as societies.
Absolutely. The Artist's Way workbook talks about recovering a sense of identity through active self-definition. It involves drawing new boundaries and staking out new territory.
How does that apply to degrowth?
Well, it applies directly to societies that are trying to reevaluate their core values beyond just GDP growth. It's about consciously choosing. Who do we want to be? What do we really value? What kind of future do we actually want to build based on these deeper values, not just inertia?
Staking out new territory beyond consumerism.
Precisely. And this kind of self-definition, it requires real intentionality. Pema Chodron, in When Things Fall Apart, she really emphasizes the importance of conscious choice, of simply pausing for a moment.
Why to pause?
To break the cycle of just impulsively doing the same thing again and again. That conscious pause allows us to step out of those reactive patterns, like our ingrained cultural impulse to consume more, grow more, and step into more deliberate, intentional action. It creates space for different possibilities to emerge.
Taking a breath before reacting.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
And as we navigate this huge shift, this redefinition, it feels really important to remember something from conversations with God.
What's that?
The idea that there are no rotten apples, really. Only people acting.
Different frameworks, different understandings.
Exactly. This perspective encourages a deep, empathetic understanding. It acknowledges that for many people stuck in the growth paradigm, their mistake is based not in evil, but in ignorance. They're operating from a framework that's been deeply ingrained, a societal dream passed down for generations.
So approach with compassion, not judgment.
Right. That understanding feels crucial if we're going to collectively navigate the profound shifts needed for a degrowth society. We need to build bridges of dialogue and collaboration, not walls of judgment between different worldviews. It's about inviting people into a new way of seeing, not trying to force it on them. Hashtag tag outro. So, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, the really profound meaning of less is more starts to crystallize, doesn't it? It's not just a call for, material reduction using less stuff. It emerges as a truly fundamental spiritual shift in consciousness.
Moving beyond just the material.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing what the varieties of religious experience reminds us. That oneness of mind and will with the divine mind and will is not the future hope and aim of religion, but its very beginning and birth in the soul.
So unity isn't the end goal, it's the starting point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And religious progress or spiritual progress is not progress towards, but within the sphere of the infinite. True wealth, therefore, isn't something out there we need to acquire. It's an inheritance we already possess internally.
Waiting to be claimed or realized.
Right, waiting to be fully appropriated through spiritual activity, through conscious living, through presence. The path to a genuinely sustainable future, then, it's not just about policy changes or different economic models, as important as those are.
And it's also about
It's also profoundly about a spiritual awakening. An awakening to our fundamental interconnectedness, to our intrinsic worth that doesn't depend on what we own, and to the profound abundance that's already present when we just stop the endless frantic striving.
which raises an important question for each of us, I suppose.
It does. What does it truly mean to become a person, in the sense C.S. Lewis suggests in The Great Divorce? Someone who sees more clearly, who consciously chooses a path beyond endless acquisition and external definition.
And instead, embraces an identity rooted in that conscious presence, that universal love we talked about.
Exactly. That's the transformation we're really exploring here.
Ultimately, then, this whole deep dive, it's about recognizing the system of reality that we are currently guarding and keeping, as James Baldwin put it so powerfully in The Fire Next Time.
The ingrained beliefs, the structures.
Yeah, the ones that perpetuate this growth at all costs paradigm.
Yeah.
And having the courage to dare to envision a new one.
To dream a different dream.
Right. So I really encourage you, our listener, to consider how the spiritual insights we've explored today might actually inform your own choices, from the smallest things, like your personal consumption habits.
Thinking about Marie Kondo's idea that items want to be of use to you, suggesting a more mindful relationship with possessions.
Exactly. A reciprocal relationship, not just accumulation, all the way to your broader engagement with society. The conversations you have, the values you promote, these principles can guide us toward more intentional, more fulfilling lives, individually and collectively.
So what does this all mean?
Yeah, what does it boil down to? It means questioning our foundational assumptions, doesn't it? Examining our attachments, our clinging, and consciously choosing a path based on sufficiency, ecological balance, and genuine human well-being.
Guided by intelligence and compassion.
Rather than by mere cleverness and that insatiable greed we started with. And maybe the true test of less is more isn't just whether our planet manages to survive this critical moment, though that's obviously paramount.
But whether we, as individuals and as a society, can find genuine flourishing, lasting joy, and a profound sense of purpose right here in the boundless now here, as Conversations with God so beautifully puts it, rather than forever chasing and ever receding more that, at the end of the day, never truly satisfies.